We rise. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Ms. Mason.
Mrs. Fryrick?
Here.
Mr. Posnow?
Here.
Mr. Robinson?
Here.
Mr. Sanders?
Here.
Mr. Scalette?
Here.
Mrs. Schrader?
Here.
Mr. Sears? Mr. Toman?
Here.
Mr. Watts?
Here. And this is a reminder to please silence your cell phone during the meeting. And this is the first opportunity for public comment. All comments and questions will be addressed to the president. Board and staff members will not normally respond to comments or questions during the meeting unless recognized by the president for this purpose. Comments will be limited at the discretion of the president to 5 minutes or less. Do I have anybody that wishes to? Okay, thank you. The board met in a retreat strategic planning session on February 25th as permitted by Section 707 of the Sunshine Act for the purpose of a work session. No official action was taken. The board also met prior to this evening in executive session as permitted by Section 707 of the Sunshine Act for the purpose of discussing personnel matters. No official action was taken. We will have a special purpose non-voting meeting which is scheduled for March the 11th at 6:30 p.m. to discuss the feasibility study that we recently had performed. The meeting will be held in a high school cafeteria. Everybody's welcome. Come out. Dr. Williams.
Thank you. Tonight I'd like to help out Ms. Geyer a little bit. Ms. Geyer has an AP exam tomorrow morning and would like to get home and study. And I think that's very admirable. So I'll use some of my time here for you to be able to do your report and then get out of here and go study.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
As you may know, our mini-thon that occurred a little over a week ago was immensely successful as we raised $91,020.19 in a sixth straight record-breaking year. I'd like to thank all our donors, participants, and all other contributors for making it such a great night once again. That same weekend, our middle school musical department performed Willy Wonka Jr., and this previous weekend, our high school's musical department performed Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. So congratulations to the amazing cast and crews between both schools for putting on 2 more great productions. On Saturday, 10 of my peers and I traveled to Millersville University with 9th grade biology teacher Mrs. Getzel and competed in the 35th annual Science Olympiad competition. Results from that should be released sometime this week. This previous Friday and Saturday, our swim teams competed in districts where the girls placed 6th and the boys placed 2nd. Today marks the first official day of spring sports, so keep an eye out for first upcoming competitions. And lastly, I'd like to mention that this Wednesday, March 6th, there will be a fundraiser at Mod Pizza on behalf of a suburban family whose house was recently damaged by a fire, so I invite you all to come out and support. And that's all I have to report. Thank you.
What's the date again?
March 6th, this Wednesday.
I'd like to especially compliment all those who worked on the mini-thon. It's really super.
Yeah, I'd like to comment on that as well. I'm involved with a lot of charities locally, and the number that you guys raised is on par with some of the highest performing events in the county. So to have that as a student-run event is really tremendous.
And I had the privilege of witnessing both of the programs. They're fantastic. I mean, you can tell when you go to the middle school that there is talent getting ready to come up to the high school. This year I thought that the sets that were worked on at the middle school were outstanding. I think the Weinrich family had a lot to do with that. They did a really good job. And they always try to involve as many children as possible down at the middle school. So that's always a very, very encouraging evening down there. And then to come up to the high school event was a little bit of trouble with the car, but that's okay. Daisy stole the show anyway, Daisy the dog, so that was a good thing too. And it was really good to see so many young children in it who will have a future in YS musical events. So kudos to all the directors and all the families that show for kids and all of the people that helped build sets. It was really very, very good.
Thank you, Lauren.
Good luck with your test.
Thank you.
Okay, item A, the administration recommends approval of a slight revision to the 2019-2020 school calendar.
Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Krauser can answer questions related
I was
to...
going to say, you and I kind of talked about this, if you'd like to kind of explain.
Yeah,
The
the question
slight
was
change.
relative to why the slight change. We were hoping to add the professional development day prior to the start of school, but as we got into kind of the past practice with, in particular, the transition day, historically, the transition day was counted as a student day. However, working with child accounting and discovering it really shouldn't be counted as a student day because it's not a mandated day. There's ranging enrollments on which students are coming on that day. It is a transition day. In a teacher's agreement, they're afforded a transition day. So to make sure that we're being respectful of that and honoring that and certainly keeping up with our child accounting at an accurate measure, we want to ensure that day was a student transition day, which gave our count a recount. So we pulled the Friday, which was originally supposed to be a professional development day, back off as a non-student day and a non-professional development day, and embedded 2 early dismissals, which have historically been in the fall to start, kind of back into the calendar as well. So that ensures that we're up to par with our child accounting and our reporting of our numbers to the state of Pennsylvania, as well as ensuring that we're still providing opportunities for teachers to collaborate and buildings to continue working with their teachers on their building goals and initiatives.
As I had said in my conversation with Dr. Krause and Dr. Williams, I'm not thrilled at the thought of dismissal days in the calendar. I hope that we can maybe start to look at some other ways to build in these collaboration times for teachers. I think it's very important, and I don't think that collaborating, even once a month is kind of tough. You kind of forget from January to February to March of what you're doing, but I would certainly like to see us do something other than have these children have these constant half days off. I think it's kind of somewhat disruptive, to say the least. I'll vote for this, but I'd like to see us working in the future.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
And item B, the administration recommends approval of the overnight field trip request for High School Family and Consumer Science Department. We discussed this last time, and we're recommending approval.
So moved.
Questions or comments?
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
And item D, I'd like to add as an addendum to tonight's agenda. The administration requests board authorization to issue a statement of charges to a professional employee and signature on that statement by the board president.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? Roll call vote.
Schrader,
Yes.
Watts,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Fryrick,
Yes.
Toman,
Yes.
Posnow,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Scalette.
Yes.
Okay, and item C, I skipped accidentally, not intentional. Dr. Adams and Dr. Manos are here. Dr. Adams first? Okay, Dr. Adams will be first because I think he has some special guests with him.
Good evening. So we have with us tonight Stephen and Melody and Caitlin and Felicia that are going to, and Mrs. Stark, we're going to talk a little bit about something that our French students do. They're getting ready to ship some things off. I'm not going to steal any of their thunder, but the timing of this board meeting worked out really well to bring them over. So I'm going to turn it over to them and let them provide the high school report for tonight.
Good evening. I'm Stephen.
I'm Felicia. And I'm
Now what we do in French class is we make books. We start off with an idea with a partner or by ourselves, and then we craft our rough drafts and we send them to Madame to edit. And we make our books with visuals and with our stories, and then we finalize them.
So we're basically sending them to orphans in Haiti, which is right next to the Dominican Republic. And they are much more than we are, so
So it kind of feels special. Being in such a great school district, it's a great idea. For that, their lives.
The agency is kind enough to give us a list of the kids in the orphanage and their age and their gender. So the younger kids get teamed up with French 1, if you wish, because the books and the language is a little easier. And then the older one get the older kids. And then there's one, if you see, there's one that has a picture of a book with a wizard on it. It's about, that's my French name. Annabelle made it last year. And then if you see around the second part, she decided to write it to the same child and write the second half of the story. And so if she keeps up all the way to French 5, every year she's going to be writing about a wizard, but it's kind of cool to see her writing getting more complicated and all that stuff. And they're taking the books on trip on March 16th, so they want the books there by March 11th. So it was perfect timing like that.
How many students participate in this? All the French students?
From every student in high school, from French 1 to French 5. And they can work by themselves, or they can work with a partner. That's up to them.
Very nice.
Very nice. Very good. Thank you.
And French 1 also learn about Haiti. We do a little research on Haiti first. By French 5, I knew a lot already about it, so we don't do so much research about it anymore. We just focus on the book. French 1 learn about Haiti and the culture and the children. These are French 2 and French 3. And then you saw some French 4 and French 5.
Very much. Really, really good.
Really cool.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming too. I just figured it'd be a whole lot better for you to hear from them than me to say French 1 through 5, they create books and illustrate them and then send them to Haiti, Madame Stark under her leadership. So something really special that the kids get to do. I'm glad you shared about how, sometimes we do feel pretty fortunate and taking things for granted. So it's a neat project that Madame Stark's now done for 3 years and will continue to do with the students.
As long as somebody wants to take them over there, more kids going.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You guys are welcome to stay, or if you've got homework.
They have a lot of homework.
Anything better?
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
I didn't think that had been a school board meeting there. No. Great.
Watch windows.
My report for Valley View, 2 months ago I was with you at York Tech, I believe is where we were, and I shared a message about taking a village to raise a child. One of the events that we have started at Valley View this year is called I Write Assemblies. So what we do monthly is we ask each classroom to choose 3 students to highlight their writing. So what you're looking at in front of you is an I Write assembly, where in the bottom right corner, you see what would be on the projector. So with that picture that you're looking at, behind the student in the orange circle is that slide. So it's highlighting a student's writing. That student musters up the bravery and courage to come to a microphone, and you can imagine in front of their grade level peers and parents in the background how difficult that is. That particular student you're looking at has his kindergarten teacher right next to him, helping him through that piece of writing. So it takes sometimes that encouragement as well. But just wanted to show you where families, students, teachers, paraprofessionals are all playing in one picture to a student's success. Throughout the year, as we progress monthly, every child will have the opportunity to share their writing. I will say, I've worked with some parents where if the nerves are getting the best of them and they're actually starting to not feel well about it, we've done some on-the-side videoing of kids sharing their writing, but not putting them up in front of the crowd. My litmus for teachers is butterflies and then the experience and the feel good afterwards, that's what we're going for. If at any point we're getting sick over it, that's not what we're going for, and we can get creative after that. In small print there, you will see that at our first grade I-Write assembly last month, Dr. Ketterman was there, and yes, she was on the floor with the kiddos, enjoying writing being shared. I will say our next one is this month. It's March 28th, and they run right in the 9:30 to 11 o'clock range. So by no means would you be coming for an hour and a half, but each grade level takes about 20 to 30 minutes. So we get all three grade levels in at that time. They get in, do the sharing. Those are I-Write assemblies. Another way to highlight students' work efforts in the classroom.
Date was March.
28th, it's a Thursday, starting at 9:30.
Dr. Ketterman was there. Is that you in the blue wig?
That's one of our student teachers. It was Wacky Hair Day. I will give him credit. And next to him, I think, is Mrs. Murray with some sort of, I forget what Disney character it was with the blonde tails. But yes, it was Wacky Hair Day.
However, he also was donning a blue wig.
I'm not in the I'm not in the photo, but when it comes to wacky hair, having not had hair for decades, I do enjoy that day because I put a wig on and I have my moment of having hair for the day.
Thank you for these pictures. The pictures do speak 1,000 words about Valley View. It's really
Yeah, it does. It gives you a visual of the village concept. So. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that concludes superintendent's report. I do not. I said I would provide them when you asked, I said I would provide them at the next meeting.
Okay.
Oh, you, oh, well, then share.
I'm ready for this question. So this is completed, accepted registrations, everything, approved and everything, we have 48 that have
How does that compare with last year?
Go ahead. At this time, last year at this time?
Yeah.
I don't know for sure.
Maybe a little low, but we still got 60.
Yeah, I wouldn't read too much into numbers right now.
Just a comparison.
A lot of weird stuff happens between now and, we'll have kids registering on the first day of school.
Well, we also have them 2 weeks afterwards.
Oh, yeah,
They
yeah,
don't
yeah.
know we start early.
Yeah, yeah, or they'll just show up and we don't even know who they are. That kind of stuff happens everywhere, not just here. I don't want you to get the wrong idea that it just happens. It happens everywhere. So I'm really suspicious of numbers this early about registration, trying to make any determination about what our needs are gonna be come September or August.
I have seen the signs in my neighborhood. I think that continues to be a good idea to put those, it's time to register for kindergarten signs out because a lot of people are not aware of the. Yeah, I mean, it's just so basic, but it's effective.
But you think about it, for a parent that has not had a kindergartner yet, I mean, they don't know. That's not their fault.
Yeah.
They just,
If they're your new neighbors, they'll put the sign in their yard. Give them
yeah. Yeah. So, and that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you. First item asking for approval this evening is, the administration recommends board approval to advertise and solicit for bids for redoing the senior high tennis courts.
So moved.
Questions?
When are bids due on that one, Ms. Mason?
I don't have the dates yet.
Okay, okay.
James, in fact, you have a question or comment?
No, I'm just clearing my head.
Oh, okay. Okay, I guess this can be a short roll call vote.
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes. The rest of the items are items to be recommended for approval on March 18th. The first one has to do with the extension of our HIG lease with our copiers and printers. This is actually will be a decrease for us in our monthly lease of about $273. So that comes out to a savings of about $16,400. The second item is approval for the proposal from FSM in the amount of $6,930 for the installation of a total of 3 lockup-type gas regulators, one for each of the new boilers at the East York Elementary School. I did put a note there, while these were recommended to be installed at the time of the boiler installation by the manufacturer, the engineer did not include in the specs because it was not required. We're now having problems with the boilers failing, and this expense would come from the capital project fund.
Ms. Nissen, would you please put this on the timeline that you keep for facilities committee, since it's coming out of the capital funds? Just so, because all those projects come out of capital funds, you know, the timeline we keep. I know it's a small one compared to some of the others.
It's not really a project. As soon as the board approves it, the work's going to get done.
Well, otherwise, we don't have a full accounting of what monies we've spent out of capital. When we look at that, and we say, oh, we have X amount of money left, or whatever we've spent.
Then you're talking the capital plan, not the timeline. The capital plan is where we keep
You can put it on the capital plan then, if
Yeah.
you'll do that. So
We'll put it on there.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions on that one? The next one, the administration recommends board approval of the proposal from Kinsley in the amount of $6,800 to provide all labor, equipment, and materials for the middle school storm pipe repair. This expense will come out of the general fund.
This is something that you just get bids on. How many people bid on it?
Mr. Gurley?
Really, only Kinsley at this point. That's who New Tech recommended, and since it was a small project, just went right to Kinsley. I can get other prices if you'd like it, but...
No, I was just curious as to whether we had, I know sometimes we have one and sometimes we have 2 or 3 or 4, and I just didn't know if anybody else had stepped forward, because we only have to get bids on this, we don't have to get...
Actually, we don't have to because it's under the $11,000
We just pick it.
mark.
Okay, thank you.
The next item, the administration recommends board approval to advertise and solicit bids for the high school stair tread replacement project, the gymnasium floor refinishing, painting and backstop replacement project, and the East York Elementary flooring project. So it's actually 3 projects. I just put it all in one item. And once we know that everything is approved, then I'll get dates, and then I'll have that timeline geared up.
These were projects that are on the list.
Correct.
But we're moving them up because of more wear, or? I'm trying to remember where they were on the list.
They were actually slated for this year, yes.
Okay.
And the last item, the administration recommends board approval of the memorandum of understanding with the York County Head Start Agency. The purpose of this agreement is to describe the responsibilities of each agency and to provide guidance for coordination and cooperation between the district and Head Start. This MOU is required under ESSA, and every school district in the state actually has to get these agreements with the local Head Start agencies. Any questions on that? Informational item before I get to the budget. You will see under the confidential part in the board, and you don't have to look at it now, Wendy, you just put it out there earlier today. The IU budget is there. We had put this on back in January and then pulled because the superintendents were back and forth on exactly what they wanted to do as a group with this budget. We are now going to approve the budget, so that will be on the March 18th agenda. That's why we wanted to post the budget out there for you to look at now.
That's the $7 million operating budget, am I correct? Is that the one we're going to approve, 7.7 million? Or?
It's their operating budget.
Their operating budget, it's not the special ed budget. There's none of the special ed money in that. I know.
That's a point of contention.
Yeah.
I understand that. That's why I was asking if this is 7.7 million, which is their operating budget.
All I'll say is that we're going to be recommending approval of the budget, and with the anticipation that things are going to change going forward with new leadership. Some districts have decided they unanimously voted no to send a message, and we think the message has been sent. And we are going to be recommending that you just vote in approval, in the affirmative. And we'll watch very carefully as the year goes on, but we do anticipate changes coming from that organization.
If the district votes no, they're not part of it, they have to go back and reject it?
Oh, no, the majority, they need a majority.
Majority vote,
Yeah.
okay.
But I was laughing because what if we all vote no?
Well.
We've been asking that question, like, what happens? Nobody knows.
Yeah.
It's never happened.
But that's kind of message sent. I hear you, change not made.
Then we'll all vote no next time.
Is that part of the message?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, oh yeah. We were very, very honest with the current acting executive director, who's in constant contact with the incoming executive director. And the current acting executive director is an honest person. I've known him for a long time. He's not going to mince words. He's going to tell. I think Corinne knows him too. Corinne used to
I
work
know
with
Dr.
him.
Senstig very well.
Yeah. So we know the message is getting through. Whether the new person acts in the way that he should act, remains to be seen, but we have some peripheral evidence that he will act in the right manner. We have strong reason to believe that things will change.
Will we get updates through the year that things
Well,
are being
they'll come through, I
contemplated,
think,
or-
through Ellen.
Yeah.
I've been talking to
Yeah.
Sue Heaston, who represents both of us, the IBU, and she's going to give me, as much as she can, actually send me some of their, the agendas, and, and then if we want more explanation, that we can get that from the superintendent, yeah.
Yeah, and I'll get, through my channels, I'll be providing information as well. We share a seat with Dallastown.
Right, I would prefer that we're not sitting here a year from now.
Agreed.
Where you're gonna, if the actions haven't changed, I don't wanna, look, my brain doesn't have that kind of long-term memory. So, if we could get an update kind of midway through the year as to where we're at, that'd be helpful, just so we know that they're on track, that they're listening to the message.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Thanks.
Okay, and then the last item is budget update. You have two reports in front of you. We'll look at the first one, which is the long one with the budget comparison. Looking at the local revenue, if you look at the 611, which is the real estate, you'll see that number looks like it's a significant high increase. There's two reasons for that. One, our assessed value did go up, but more importantly, that big chunk of money that's about $650,000, at least it has been the last few years, that gets reclassed to the state once we know that. So that money's in there for now. Once we know exactly what the gambling monies are that we're getting, we shift from the local funds to the state funds, because you'll notice under the state money, I don't have anything. So that's why that looks a little high right now, but as we get through this in the next month, you'll see that shift. Okay? Investment earnings, you'll see I'm taking that up significantly for next year, about $200,000. That may actually go up a little more, just because the interest earnings are good right now. Community service down at 6980, it's the next to last. The reason that number is up is because we've reclassed. There's three community projects that are in there now. TAC, which is swimming, Bright Horizons, which is our partnership, and our summer enrichment program that we run. So there are community programs that come out of that revenue. Okay?
What's driving the miscellaneous revenue? Why a $4 million bump?
I'm getting to that. That's on the next page. The miscellaneous revenue, that big jump is due to our insurance, because we are now self-funded ourselves and not through LBT. We bring in money. It's twofold. When we cut the check to LBT, LBT deposited to pay out of an insurance account. Now, when we cut our check that would go to LBT, it gets deposited into our insurance checking account. The auditors are saying we have to show the in and the out, so that's why our revenue is overinflated, if you will. You'll see as we go through, our expenses are overinflated as well. That was the piece I needed to really finish up to see where our numbers came in, because you'll notice, I had mentioned that at finance, but when we get to the summary page, you'll notice that our gap has come down. So as we look at the state sources, I'm sorry, did you have a question, Lois Ann?
No.
Okay.
Good, thanks.
When we look at the state revenue, of course, the increase in the basic ed of a little over 300,000. And then we have the special ed increase of the 55,000. And when I talked about the real estate, the 7340, you'll see there's no dollar figure in there right now. We should know that in probably within the next month. And then other than that, there's really no other big changes on the revenue. Then when we get to the expenditures, again, you'll see very first item of significance is the 211 medical insurance. That increase is $3.9 million, and that's because of paying our insurance out, and also our claims get paid out of our general fund now too. So we're doing both. Okay. Our retirement is up based on the rate going up. Our tuition reimbursement is, I have that up right now. I'm hoping to fine tune that number and drop it down a little more. And same with our other retirement plans. That's where we book the severance pays, and so we're working on fine tuning that number as well. Other professional service, you'll see that number's up about 800 and some thousand. That is the other piece with the insurances. We have all the admin fees that we're paying now that have to be broken out separately. It can't be charged to the insurance. Any other questions on that page? On the next page then, you'll see the increase on contracted transportation. There's a couple things that are going on there. Number one, our rates increase for next year. We had to add an extra van, and we also are going to be, our IU transportation is up. We are using the IU to transport more right now. While it's up in here, it's actually more cost effective for us to use the IU than it is to keep adding vans. And a lot of times with the IU, they're not full year transports, so it just makes sense to use them to do it instead of adding a van. You'll see our tuitions are up this year. Both our public school tuition, which is our placements, our charter school, which we've been talking about all along, is up a little over $400,000. And our VOTEC is up, and the main reason our VOTEC is up for next year is because our student numbers are really going up. If we look at the next page that deals with, starts at the top with Object 635. Looking at Object 752, new cap equipment. That one and the one that says replacement of capital equipment, those are two things that I will be talking more about at the finance meeting, seeing what all equipment is there, and if the finance committee wants to entertain possibly bringing forward to the board about using some of the money out of capital reserve to pay for that equipment like we did for this year. And then the other item of interest is the 830, the bond interest, and the 910 principal. That's the new series. So if we go to the last page, in the estimate column, if you go about halfway down, change in fund balance, I'm estimating right now of the 1.4 million that we were, when we adopted the budget, that we were going to use that we did use to close the gap, I'm projecting right now we'll only need 727,000 of that. And then if you look over to the right of that, I'm now saying for the proposed budget, our gap is 2.2 million. Any questions on that? Yes?
So, as I look out, and I look out to 2021, 21, 22, I think it's great that we're actually starting to project. They're very close to this year, so there's not a lot of growth. We're not projecting, we're just kind of sliding numbers with some percentages.
Well, the key thing on those two projected columns is I did increase, if you go back to the page one of the expenditures, I increased the salary.
Okay.
Therefore, salary, Social Security, retirement, and left everything else constant. Did not include a tax revenue increase either. I left revenue stagnant.
So then I guess my question, if I go back and I looked at 2011 to today and looked at our sort of budget at the end of the year, we come away every year with a surplus that adds to fund balance. So if I look at these numbers are showing the deficit in fund balance growing, but yet every year for the past 5, we've seen an increase in revenue. What am I missing?
We've seen an increase in revenue.
Yeah, if we look, every year leading up, we've put money back in the budget where we had a surplus at the end of the year. So I'm trying to, for instance, in 2017, we had a surplus of 2.5 million. The year before that, it was 1.6. The year before that, it was 1.6. So every year, we're having a surplus going into the budget, but yet we're projecting this deficit in fund balance, which makes me curious. Is that a fair word?
But that's not uncommon. When
No, but I guess where I get queasy is, so forget about this year, write a check for this year to pay the budget. As we look out 2 years, I get really uncomfortable with this budget growing when there's a history of it not happening. I don't know if I'm saying that very well.
Maybe. So the years that we keep adding to the surplus, right?
Mhm.
Has there been some type of forensic analysis done? Is there a trend as to what's driving that every year? Is it we were off on our real estate assessments? Did we not spend money in a certain category every year? Because right to John's point, we're doing this every year. It's up, it's up, it's up, and then when we look out, it's down, it's down, it's down.
Right.
And we're budgeting like the world, like we're falling off a cliff.
That's right, we're going down.
But in reality, we're continuing to build a bridge across.
Right.
So,
The main thing that has been happening, which I have been sharing with you all along, is the revenue, the real estate piece on the sales, and for the most part, it's been shopping centers, and we don't know that they're for sale. That's happened the last 2 years. We've also had and I've gone back to the county several times and they can't explain it, our earned income tax, for whatever reason, keeps going up. Nobody else's in the county is going up, but ours continues to go up. It should be, they felt it should have been flatlined 2 years ago. So we've got the earned income going up, the real estate, and the interims. Interims have been one of those, and I've tried to put them up a little higher. And our delinquents, and the delinquents isn't something you can predict.
Right.
And the big thing we had with the delinquents is when they finally settled Regents Glen. And that had been on the books even before I started here. So it's mostly in the real estate that we have that, and it's about then realty transfer is what takes that. It's not necessarily the taxes go up, the real estate, the school tax, but it's the realty transfer tax that goes up.
So your projection this year, we said we were going to be down 1.4 million. But you're saying now it's 700,000. If I look back at the past 5 years, and I were a betting person, I would say that it's not going to be down 700,000. It's going to be up 100,000.
Closer to the 1.4 or something like that.
No, the other way, closer to zero in terms of deficit.
Oh, deficit.
Based on that thought, then you're thinking that we're over projecting this year's deficit based on the historical trend.
Yeah, and what makes me really uncomfortable about that is you can't use a historical trend necessarily for tax revenue. But if I look back 5 years, every year we've done the same thing. So I just want to be cognizant of that and point this out. Because as we write the check for this coming year, I want to think about the next 2 or 3 years out.
Compounds itself.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah. So, I'm not sure if there was a question in there. That was just kind of
I think it was more of a statement.
random thought process. I'm sorry.
If we're short, did you say 2.2? At what stage, when in the timeline, do we get a firmer look at this? And, I mean, where's that going to come from, I guess, is my question.
Well, there'll be more of a look next week at finance, and if we can go to the second handout I had, I think that will actually help to think about things for finance for next week. And that is, okay, so our gap is 2.2, but administration was already recommending using 1.1 out of fund balance because of the 800 on the employer HSA contribution. It's essentially a one-time. There could be one more year. And the 300 start dipping into the retirement assigned fund balance. So that leaves now the gap of 1.1. At the finance meeting, it was recommended that I show the board, because the whole board was there, 2.7, 2.5, 2.3, 1.9, and 1.6. What revenue would those increases generate? So I have done that, but you'll see the block underneath it. I also did a 1.5, a 1.25, a 1.15, and a 1. And one of the reasons I did that is because of the fact the way it did come down, and to your point, Mr. Posnell, that conversation was started at the finance meeting, which I'm looking at in different ways to see if there is a definitive, this is what we're doing wrong, or this is what we're doing, and this is just what's happening.
I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just saying that I want to be able to plan this out for several years to think about, where we are. Because I don't, in 3 years, I don't want to find myself in really bad shape where I'm begging the state for some astronomical tax increase. But at the same time, I don't want to just raise taxes because I can.
Right. And one of the other things I will put out there is, with the feasibility study that the board started to look at, and we'll be looking at it more on Monday and probably for many committee meetings to come, Mr. Toman, I believe you asked the question about financing, what would that be? And for every $10 million, it's going to cost us $450,000. So that's one of the reasons I did the extended index there, because of the fact I know the concern on taxing, but at the same time we have to prepare for what may be coming down the road as well. So that's why I broaden that scope on the index.
So if I do this on the back of my finger, so I get it right, just for the sake of argument, you've said we've reduced the load on the fund balance by half, so now it's 700,000 instead of... So suppose I'm right and it's zero, that means that we're not 1.1 million, we're only 700,000 down, which is the difference between 2.7 and 1.6 in terms of a tax increase. So I think it's important that we get it right.
Correct.
Without one, shafting the district, or two, shafting the taxpayers. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's important that we are not too conservative in our estimates of what we need to spend. If we don't get the revenues that let's say we're realistic with the revenues that come in, and we don't get them, I expect the administration to figure out how to make it work. You know, in the real world, in the business world, my boss tells me every month when I tell him how much money I'm going to make. He doesn't like when I'm conservative, because I'm just handing him a big pile of garbage to figure out how to explain to his boss. So he wants me to give him the best number I can give him, because I'm just passing the trash up the chain. And what we're doing here is our chain ends with the, you know, open wallets of our taxpayers. And I don't think we should go in like that. I think we do go in here and we say, well, we don't know, so let's assume like it's the worst case scenario. We can't do that. If it happens to be the worst case scenario, all right, at the end of the year, we'll dip into the money. But I would say if it is the worst case scenario, then we should be working harder to save money along the way. And I believe we do that. But I don't think we should just give ourselves this huge cushion to work with, and then it'll work out, because that just goes to the taxpayers. I don't think that's fair, and I do believe there's a trend that we always come out on the right side of this. That shouldn't happen with budgeting. Budgeting should come out. Some years you should lose, and some years you win.
And I'm not comfortable with that.
You don't like to lose.
But,
you know,
I don't like to lose anything. But
well, then you work really hard to not lose. I mean, I know what the end of the year is like in business, and you're working hard. You know, you either knocked it out of the park and you did great, or you are trying really hard to save money and to make it look even at the end. And I think we owe that fiscal control to our taxpayers. So we shouldn't go in here. I mean, I'm like, I really dislike this number that we're coming up with as the amount we're going to go up in theory, because I don't believe it. I'm with John. I don't believe that number.
Mason, having beat you up a little bit here, let me kind of just spout my vision for the other side. I think it is equally as important that we manage the money correctly here, but at the same time, I expect the administration to come to us and say, what's it going to take to have our test scores move in the right direction? What's it going to do to serve our kids? So that this is not about what do we cut to save the money. This is about how we build this picture. So it's this multi-sided thing. I know you get tired of me hearing me say it, but our choices are, on one side, you're going to take money out of what you got in savings, you're going to raise taxes, or you're going to cut programs. Well, it's really hard to cut programs if you're trying to improve student experience. But you have to be realistic about what that student experience is. So you've got taxes, you've got spend out of the bank, and you've got appropriately defining where that needs to go. And I really like where you're taking this now. Because even though, like Mr. Tolman says, I'm not sure I believe the numbers, but at least there are numbers there that we can make the discussions about. So, nice job for that. I really like where that's going.
Okay.
This is going to be an unpleasant few weeks. So, just warning you.
No, that's what it's about.
Okay.
And to that, at finance, there will be, I will have the forecast model that I've been using, that it's live, so that as the board finance talks about different scenarios, we can see them as they and what it would do. So that'll be available as well.
By scenarios, you mean what's coming and going, being taken and given, and the adjustments that you're making, is that what you're saying?
Not that I'm making, if,
Proposing.
it would more or less be if the board says, what if? If we
What if we do this, or
propose
what if we
this
do that?
for this revenue and we cut the expense, or we use this from fund balance, how does that all, what does
Okay,
it look
yeah,
like?
I'm anxious to see very specifically what, cuts to programs and things like, those kinds of discussions. I want to see where you're digging into those, not just, we're going to cut on supplies or something. Is it going into programs or something like that?
Oh, we're not, unless you tell us to, we're not planning on proposing cuts to programs.
Well, if it should happen, or where else are you taking any chunks of money out of the budget? You gotta be taking it someplace.
Oh, that's what the conversation's
Yeah, I
gonna
mean,
be
that's
about.
what that's what
And-
I'm asking specifically, that's what you're gonna
And
be
she's
showing.
still,
them.
Corinne's still
No.
firming up numbers, like the healthcare number, for example. Much more solid information lately, and is able to produce a better number. And that'll continue to happen over the next couple of weeks.
And the trend of that over the next 3 years should improve our position.
Correct.
We don't have much history on our
Yeah,
current
'cause
situation.
We basically lent ourselves a pot of money to get us into this position.
Right, which is the other thing I did note on this sheet is our trust fund balance has not really changed much. We're still at the 1.3. I think it's changed 20,000 since the last time I got a check. So that's the other thing that, we can use towards, we're used to the holiday. Okay, so we could essentially say out of this 1.3, we might take 2 months. We generally put in about $346,000 per month into that insurance account. So you could look at that.
I like that approach. My discomfort comes in that I believe we're building a structural deficit.
Correct. I just pointed that out because it's there.
Because every time we borrow these 2 months, next year, we're 2 months in the hole. So,
Well, and that's the big thing on this year
we still
because it
have
was
surplus.
6 months.
All right, I'm confused by that. So we're funding the LBT still,
No, we are not.
then it's not money. I don't understand.
No, it is because when we gave notice to LBT that we were leaving, we had to leave all of our money there for a year.
Okay.
So that's still our money, but we're not going to get it till this October. And that all comes back to us.
Right, but then we're not borrowing against that indefinitely.
No,
It's done. At some point, we either get all of this or we get whatever
No,
we didn't
get it.
spend.
we get it.
but if we take chunks of that to balance the budget, next year, we've got still that structural deficit. And my point that started this was that it's only a structural deficit on paper if every year we're coming up with a surplus. So,
Yeah, I mean, to be fair here, I'm not asking us to cut any programs. I'm
Understood.
asking us to be realistic in the numbers that we're sitting here, not like making sure we have enough. Be realistic. It's not good. It's not good to come out at the end with more money, really. And that's what my boss told me. It's really great that you came through in the end, Mike, and you made 5% more than you were supposed to make. But all month long, I was being told you were going to make 10% less. That was not good. That made a miserable month for my boss. I was good with it. I came out like a hero. But, I mean, we don't want to build money in here that isn't real, just because we're being too conservative in the numbers. We should be realistic in the numbers. We shouldn't stretch it and go, oh, well, somehow we're going to manage to spend 5% less and not know how to do that. But we should be realistic based on what we've seen and put those numbers in. And then maybe this $2.2 million is 1.1. Historically, that looks like a really good guess. I mean, we put back in 1.1 or more. So, yeah, I think that's what I'm asking for, is just to sharpen the pencil, which I know you do in individual accounts, but maybe that revenue, maybe that local revenue is one of the ones where we look at harder and we try to really pin that number down better than we have. I know the risk involved in that, because that's the biggest number, but it still doesn't need to be ultra conservative.
But again, I like where this is going. Nice job.
Okay.
One quick question. Historically, deficits have been addressed by increasing the property tax. When's the last time this district has ever considered increasing the earned income tax?
We can't.
Control of it.
We don't have control of the 0.5%.
I don't think it can
No,
go above that
the
either.
only time we could have done that was when Act One came into play. Otherwise, we can't arbitrarily increase earned income tax. That had to be voted on by the board, what was that, 2006, I think, was
Thereabouts,
Act One?
yeah.
Act One, yeah.
Over a decade ago.
Yeah.
Our options are pretty limited, which makes the planning of this really, really important. And I think, taking a leap, this community wants a really high-quality district. So, it's easy to say, well, it's going to cost all this money for a high-quality district, but it's incumbent on us to do our jobs, I think, to effectively plan this and deliver those numbers. It's not like this pot that we build, but it's been a budget week for me, so.
Clearly.
Well, I'm continuing to fine tune, so the numbers will change somewhat till we meet in finance next week. And then we'll go from there.
Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes my report.
And I believe weekend the committees, the committee meeting schedule is posted, and Ms. Farrar.
Nothing for facilities other than the March 6th committee meeting has been canceled. And I will remind everyone again of the March 11th meeting to discuss the feasibility study at 6:30 in the high school cafeteria. If we say it enough, maybe a different person will hear it each time. Thank you.
Mr. Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Posnell. Following discussion at the Personnel Committee meeting on February 13th and the Board regular monthly meeting on February 18th, the Personnel Committee recommends approval of the following. A, eliminate the middle school math coach position effective June 30th, 2019. This position was created and never filled. B, eliminate a middle school music teacher position effective June 30th, 2019. This position has been vacant and scheduling has not been affected by the vacancy. C, due to an internal transfer, eliminate a sixth grade teacher position effective June 30th, 2019. D, due to an internal transfer, eliminate a middle school science teacher position effective June 30th, 2019. E, create a .5 business teacher position at the high school. F, create an autistic support teacher position effective for the 2019-2020 school year. G, create 2 paraprofessional classroom aide positions for the autistic classroom effective for 2019-2020 school year. H, create a .5 middle school dean position effective for the 2019-2020 school year. I, create an elementary teacher position effective for the 2019-2020 school year. J, create 2 ESL teacher positions effective for the 2019-2020 school year. And last but not least, K, create a full-time human resource administrative assistant position effective for the 2019-2020 school year.
Questions, discussion?
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
Item 2, consent agenda. You have before you the personnel report, which includes retirement, resignation, and employment. Would any board member like any of these items considered separately, or are there any questions on any of these items? If not, the chair moves approval of the below-mentioned items.
Second.
Questions, comments?
This will be considered a unanimous roll call vote unless I hear votes to the contrary. Hearing none, motion passes.
That concludes my report, but I know you can't get enough of me, right? Legislative update. I think the last time we were on the verge of seeing Representative Carol Hill Evans. Well, we actually conferred with the representative for the better part of an hour, or maybe more than that.
More than that, yeah.
It was a very productive and fruitful discussion. I think our representative was actually very happy to see us. If I'm not mistaken, this is the first time in living history a delegation from Suburban actually visited her in her office, and we covered a multitude of topics and concerns. I will defer to Dr. Williams to give a more erudite and informative explanation of the content of the meeting. Dr. Williams?
Well, if I knew what that meant. I would say the conversation was very fruitful. I think she truly was happy to have us there. We're looking to build a relationship with our legislators because ultimately they're the ones who control what happens to the public schools in Pennsylvania. I think she's a friend of education, but time will bear that out. So we look forward to continued conversation with her, and we're going to be looking for opportunities to invite her into the school system too, to see firsthand what is going on.
Couldn't have done better myself. That's exactly my definition of erudite. And I would add that she mentioned that on March 28th, there's going to be a conference about early childhood education to be held at the Engagement Center downtown, the old Lafayette Club. I believe it starts at 9:30, and all are welcome. So if anybody can make it, I think that would be a step in the right direction. I'm planning to go, if anything, just to show the flag, the Suburban flag, and as Dr. Williams said, to really keep that sense of a relationship and a connection between our representatives and us strengthened. Ultimately, I would like our local legislators to think of Suburban as the go-to resource for any questions about education or trends in education. I can say that easily because I won't be taking the call, Dr. Williams.
But that's spot on about how we should try to approach this.
Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nothing other than what we heard before, that budget, the LIU budget is going to come before us at the next meeting. York Adams Academy, I'm pleased to say that we continue to keep our 12 of our 12 seats filled at York Adams Academy, and at our recent board meeting, we've begun to talk about a student information system, which will certainly facilitate and make things easier for us to keep track of our students and all the PIMS information and things like that. We're also very blessed to be having numerous groups from outside the York area coming to talk to our students. We have one of the, like a VOTech or training school from the Pittsburgh area that has come in, Hack comes in, because our students are interested in those kinds of programs. And we're working with CareerLink and one of the other organizations in town that actually helps the students prepare at their applications or their applications to take college boards. And the young person that we're working with at CareerLink is a York Adams Academy graduate from a number of years ago. So that's always nice to see that she has progressed so well. And starting next year, Dr. Snell, who's our superintendent of record from Central York School District, has invited the staff from York Adams Academy to participate in a couple of their professional development days over at Central so that they have an opportunity to interact with other staff people. So if that works, we might approach other school districts that, I mean, we have very few staff, but they're always looking for opportunities for that 48 days and things like that. So it might be a good possibility for them to interact with other teachers in the county. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. York Adams Tax Bureau?
No report.
York County School Technology?
Yes, just briefly, I wanted to share that we had a York Suburban student who was recognized as one of the Students of the Month for February. Just for the record, her name is Olivia Sharp. She's a 10th grader in sports technology and exercise science. She attended the meeting, so at the break I was able to introduce myself to her, and she seemed to be a very genuine, sincere young lady, and I think is looking toward perhaps a career in physical therapy, which was nice. But it has been our custom in the past for the superintendent to drop her a note, or the Students of the Month a note, just acknowledging their recognition. So
Happy to do so.
get together and do that. Thank you. That concludes my report.
I'd like to take this time to thank all of you that have hung in with us and sat through this tonight. The board meeting schedule is posted online here, and this is your last opportunity for public comment.
John?
Yeah.
Could I just say, I failed to mention it earlier when we approved the Family Consumer Science field trip, just to acknowledge the extra effort that those teachers are doing to take students to a leadership conference. It's always a good thing when you can get students, I think, out of their home building and to a statewide conference, especially looking at something as important as leadership skills. This is a department that very often their curriculum is translated into real-world skills, and to take them out to a leadership conference is a good thing, and it's extra work on their part, and I just wanted to take a minute and acknowledge that. Also, to remind everybody that we have an academic standards and curriculum meeting next week, Wednesday the 13th at 4 o'clock. I guess that's followed by the finance meeting at 5. So come one, come all.
And we're going to take a 5-minute break after we adjourn, come back for an executive session in here. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.